What's up, everybody? It's Greg with Delta, and this is the Be the Difference podcast. This podcast is all about making you a better person in your life and in your business, on coaching, on sales, leadership, mindset, marketing, everything under the sun. When it comes to being an entrepreneur, we bring our own guest speakers. Today, I've got with me the honor and pleasure of welcoming Mr. Jake Kauffman. Jake, how are you, sir?
Greg, I'm doing great. How about you?
I'm doing very well, man. I'm doing very well. I'm sorry,
Awesome.
my voice is super hoarse. My intro is usually a lot better than that, but it was like crackling throughout. I'm like, damn, my voice isn't all the way back yet. So I'm glad we're able to do this today. This is gonna be interesting.
Yeah, me too. I'm happy to carry the conversation. I know Tony Robbins can take it out of you.
Oh man, he definitely can. That is for sure.
Blew the lid off.
Yeah, dude. For those of you that are wondering, like, why the hell is Craig's voice? What are we talking about Tony Robbins for? So I just went to the UPW, the Unleash the Power Within event, which was the first time that Tony had a live event in Dallas ever since COVID 2020, which I was supposed to go to that one too. And it was actually the first digital event that he did. I did the digital event. I'm gonna be honest, I did the digital event because I already had tickets for UPW, and it is converted to digital tickets. And day one, I got on there and I saw a bunch of people dancing on some weird stage with screens behind them, and I was like, "What the fuck is this?" And people on their Zoom screens were doing the same thing because you see everyone on Zoom, and I was like, "I'm not doing this shit. Like, I got other things to do, man. Like, okay, like, not for me." And somehow, some way, well, I was linked into all of his marketing because I had bought a previous UPW event in 2020, and I saw an email that came through. It was like, "Hey, it's the first live event in Dallas. We're back." And I was like, "You know what? That might be interesting." And I completely forgot about the whole like dancing stuff. I did. So I clicked on the link. Somebody called me, and we had a conversation. And I explained to him, "Hey, I was supposed to go to the previous one, blah blah blah, what I just talked about." And this is back in March. This is beginning of March of this year. And so I ended up buying a ticket for me and for my buddy, one of my best buddies, Kevin, because it was his birthday that month. And I was like, "Hey, I'm gonna get him an early birthday gift, but he can't use it till November." But I got us both executive tickets. And it hit me when we got there. Like, we were standing in line, and there was 11,000 people at this event. Like, it was massive. And we're standing in line trying to, yeah, that's tiny, right?
Tiny. Yep.
And there was like 3,000 or 4,000 people on Zoom watching. So as also, and so we're waiting in line going into this event, and I was like, "Hey, bro, we're gonna be dancing a lot." Like, I remembered. And he looked at me. He was like, "The fuck are you talking about?" Like, what? I was like, "Yeah, man, it's like a big thing. They like dance, jump, and we screaming and stuff." And he was like, "Bro, I ain't doing that." And I was like, "Yeah, give it about 15, 20 minutes of it going on, and you're gonna be like a child in there, just like arms flailing and share his shit." So it was 4 days of literally every 15 to 20 minutes jumping up and then just being like, "Jump up and shake the building," and everyone's like jumping, and there's like music's pounding of like the highest, fastest beat, usually some like it's not like a house song or like Animals by Martin Garrix. Like, it's like boom,
high energy.
Yeah, high energy, and you're screaming at the top of your lungs. My voice started going out day 2, but I was still screaming on day 3s and 4. And that was on Sunday. This is Tuesday. Yesterday I could barely talk. Today it's starting to finally come back. But it was an incredible event. So if anyone's listening to this, I like to put this on the front end. Definitely, I'm not affiliated with Tony Robbins in any way, by the way. I'm telling you to go do this because it will change your life, and it changed mine. And I believe in that, in transformation. So if you see a Tony Robbins event and you're like, "You know what?" and you remember this, I'm telling you, you will not regret it. So with that being said, I want to go ahead and introduce Jake and who he is, since most of you may not know him. So Jake is an international transformation coach, and he also believes in transformation, obviously. He's also a spiritual mentor to purpose-driven visionary men and entrepreneurs who are seeking to grow in their life and leadership. He has supported hundreds of men to thrive and reach the next level in all areas of their life, business, and relationships. His mission is to help men radically heal, transform, so that they can achieve their full potential and fulfill their purpose. Jake, this is a perfect conversation to have after just me coming out of Tony Robbins' event.
Totally.
I'm excited.
Yep.
Let's do this.
Me too. I was going to say, if we're talking about transformation, then we're on the right track.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So what got you into transformation? What, like, there's always something, there's some background,
Yep.
event. Um, it's usually an event that creates
Yep.
leverage in your
Yep.
mind for change and transformation that has a significant impact for you're like, holy shit, if I can do it, so many other people can do it too. Like,
Yeah, yeah, totally. I mean, mine was more of like a slow boil. I know for
uh,
a lot of people, there's like an acute incident or experience that propels them into transformation. And I do believe that there are two primary catalysts for transformation, and that's either great love or great suffering. And with great love comes great suffering. So it pretty much boils down to great suffering.
mhm,
Um, for me, it was, waking up, I was 27, 28, and realizing that I was only scratching the surface of my potential. I had always been very aspirational, very ambitious, very driven and motivated. And yet here I was serving tables at a restaurant in Chicago, like I mentioned, feeling very unfulfilled because I knew I was capable of so much more.
mhm,
So, with that depressive state of realizing that, man, I am so far removed from, the person that I aspire to be, and the life that I want to lead, came the realization that, all right, well, if I want to do different, then I need to become different. Right?
mhm,
I need to change. I need to transform. And so it was right around that time that I started going to therapy, because what else do you do when you when you talk about change or personal development? That, to me, this is over 10 years ago now. So that to me became the most obvious answer.
mhm,
And it was in and through therapy that I started to talk about the different challenges that I was experiencing with my therapist naturally. And very, very quickly into the conversation, we landed on an experience that I went through when I was 12 or 13, where I was sexually abused. But I had never acknowledged it for what it was, because when you're 12 or 13 years old, you don't really have the mental resources to know what to do with an experience like that. And
mhm.
so my answer to dealing with it was to, of course, not deal with it.
Ignore it. Put it in a little
Ignore
black
it.
box in
Yep. And just
in the recesses of your mind.
a
Ignore
hundred
it like it's not there.
100%.
Yeah.
But as you can probably imagine, and this is true for all of us,
Mhm.
regardless of whether or not we've gone through sexual abuse, because trauma is much more about what happened inside of us as a
Yes.
result of what happened compared to what actually happened. And so after that incident, I started to mask. I took on this high performer persona, three-sport athlete, excelled at academics. I was even like a recognized artist in the state of Michigan, which is where I grew up.
Oh, what kind of art? What kind of art? I'm curious because I
Yeah,
was also an artist in high school.
pastels, actually,
Okay.
pastels. Yep, that was my jam. I
Yeah.
was never really a
I
good.
was charcoal and newsprint.
Okay, yep. I was good at charcoal as well.
Yeah.
Submitted pieces. I was never a good painter, but charcoal and pastels I found easier to manipulate.
A lot easier,
And,
yeah.
yep, a lot easier to manipulate. And so was recognized in the state of Michigan for that. But all of that was just a mask in order to claim victory over the pain that I experienced when I was abused,
Yeah.
and to ensure that I could never be taken advantage of again in that way, ever again.
Yeah.
And so here I am, 27, 28, and I'm experiencing resistance. Stephen Pressfield has, this great quote that says, you know, between who you are right now and who you're meant to be stands resistance. And what does that resistance stem from? It stems from all of these interpersonal limiting beliefs that we have about ourselves, other people in the world. That's a lot of which is created via, excuse me, our early childhood experiences. And so here I am, 15 years removed from the incident, experiencing all of this resistance that's preventing me or holding me back from, quote unquote, reaching my full potential, or becoming who I really aspired to be. And so that's what sent me down the road of personal development or transformation, as we talk about, and eventually led me to supporting men in the way that I do today. Because until we reconcile the pain from the past, we will inevitably recycle it in the present moment.
Yeah. So if you could articulate
Mhm.
what that specifically the limiting belief that you
Mhm.
had attached to
Yep.
that event, how would you articulate it for everybody?
As you can imagine, there were a lot of different beliefs.
Mhm.
The two primary ones was I don't belong here
Okay.
and love is not safe.
You know what's so powerful about oh man, I love that you do this. That you said those.
Yep.
There so everybody we act out of fear, okay? And this is normal for every human being, right? If you really to boil down human
Yep.
actions and where they come from psychologically, they come from fear, fear of harm, right?
Right. Yeah.
Because we're
Avoidance of
more like
pain.
yeah, or pain.
Yep.
And so we we are more likely to do something out of getting ourselves away from pain than to move towards
Yep.
pleasure. Now, if we
Correct.
link pleasure to the opposite, to the antithesis of that limiting belief, it just makes it that much more powerful, right?
Yes.
And so the two main fears that we have, that everybody has, it's always linked to one and two. The first one is that you're not worthy enough. You're not strong enough. You're not fast enough. You're not good enough. You're not loved. They're not enough, right? And the
Yep.
other one is that you're not loved, that we won't be loved
hmm Right.
because we are, no matter what, we are social creatures, right?
hmm
We want to be, that's the most powerful force in the world is love. And,
hmm
and, they're both linked together. One stems into the other. The worthiness stems into being loved. And you literally just talked about those two, which what
Yep.
are the two basic, primary human fears that drive
Yep.
our actions, which was driving yours. And awareness,
hmm
becoming aware of those is what
Yep.
created the change because without that, what you had was you had these limiting, these bullshit beliefs, right? That are like a tabletop, and now you have all these values underneath them that are propping up that table, that's
Yep.
making it stable, right?
Correct. Yeah. It's a house built on sand. You
Exactly,
can build a house on sand. That's not the question. The question is what happens when the storm comes. And
exactly.
so that is the whole point of the deconstruction work that I do with my clients, because deconstruction is God's way of bringing us back to the main point being love, what you just talked about.
Yep,
And that's actually why I titled my book what I did, shameless plug, Let Love In. The pain stops when the truth starts, because the moment I acknowledged the incident for what it was, I was like, I'm just not going to touch that. I'm not going to go there. We can just put that right back, you know, where it was before.
yeah,
And
and it actually eats at your soul, does it not? When you
100,
ignore it, and you know it's there
yes,
and you ignore it, it, like, eats at your fucking soul.
correct. Because there's a certain amount of self betrayal involved, right?
Yes.
Where we don't deal with something, right? And the longer we don't deal with something, the more emotional energetic space it takes up, because it takes energy to repress something. It
Mhm.
does. And we only have so much bandwidth, when it comes to our decision making, when it comes to our emotions, our energy. And it takes a lot of energetic bandwidth to suppress something. And a lot of the work that I do with my clients, where we start is, what's the one thing that you've been thinking about doing but you haven't yet taken action on?
Mhm.
Because they've had this idea, they've had this moment of inspiration around wanting to take action in their business, or make a pivot as it relates to their career, something to that effect. They just haven't taken action on it, right? So what are they doing? They're procrastinating. And so the longer they procrastinate and have this pull, the more resistance is created inside of them.
And
And of
the
course,
the weaker they feel compelled to go towards it, like that
mhm,
compulsion of
correct.
chasing your dream, of going after these things, that what you felt when you were that waiter, when you're like, "Dude, I'm meant for more." You were
Yep.
compelled to take action. If you would have waited for 10 more years, like, "You know what? I'll wait till I, save some money, and then I gotta get a better car, and then I gotta get a better house, and then I gotta get a girlfriend, and then a wife, and this,
Totally.
that, the other."
Yep.
You would have slowly that feeling would have died. It would have dimmed and dimmed and dimmed over time.
Right. Well, and you have more attachments present, like, say, for example, a spouse, a kid, kids, a mortgage, potentially car
Mhm.
payments, all of these various things that tether us to the life that we now have. that oftentimes need to be let go of. I'm not saying that you should get a divorce. I'm not saying that you should let go of your kids, but all of these considerations, if you will,
Mhm.
that factor into continuing to maintain the status quo in our lives or in our businesses. And so years later, I found myself, I went down the road of personal development, but it was very much bogus self-help on my own terms because I was still avoiding the thing that I didn't want to talk about.
Yeah.
You know, and that's why, any good coach is going to guide you straight into your problems and straight into the things that you don't want to talk about, not around them.
Mhm.
So it wasn't until years later, here I am. I was a co-founder in a healthcare technology startup, really successful, and yet on some deep internal level, I felt empty because no matter what level I got to in my career, no matter how much we grew as a company, seven figures, multiple seven figures, eight figures, the resistance that I was experiencing, the internal resistance and my insecurities were still there.
Yeah.
And so I was like, what is going on? Here I am thinking, well, this will be the thing that will fulfill me, that will satisfy me. And I got that, and I'm sure you've experienced a lot of entrepreneurs who uh, have a story similar to this, where they got the very thing that they said they wanted, and yet they feel less fulfilled than beforehand. And so that was a very catalyzing moment for me, and being like, all right, I can't go on continuing to feel this way because all of these, I'm not able to enjoy these accomplishments, you know, and nothing's ever enough. I keep striving, reaching for more, all of which was simply a compensating strategy to deal with my pain.
Yeah.
And so it wasn't until I started to actually do something about that, you know, the cure for pain is in the pain.
Yeah.
And so it wasn't until I started to do something about that that I started to experience peace and fulfillment to go along with the success that I already had. And after a period of time, I was like, there are so many people that are in need of this work.
Yes.
So
Yes.
many people
So
who are highly
mm,
accomplished, highly successful, have achieved incredible milestones in business or as it relates to finances or their career, and feel the way that I do right now, feel
mm,
similarly, and they don't know what to do about it, right? And
yeah.
as men, and you probably have experienced this yourself, whether it's, you know, you or somebody else that we just stuff it. We stuff it, we suppress it, and we look to the next level or the next accomplishment or the next benchmark to be the thing that will satisfy this internal void, and we continue to be met with our insecurities and with this lack of peace and this resistance that comes from, you know um, unresolved unresolved pain and trauma.
Well, every single person, whether you're male or female, you have both masculine and feminine energy.
True.
Men tend to focus more on their masculine energy, which is more of like a
Yep.
driving force. I have to go hit these goals. I have to do better. This, that, the other. I gotta get
Yep.
that promotion, right? I have to take care. I gotta provide for my family. And the feminine side is that more nurturing and emotional side of like actually what we're talking about right now, what you're discussing, of finding the issues within, searching deep within, handling those,
Hmm.
going through the hard work internally so that you can be
Yep.
a better person externally, right? And I like
Right.
how you're talking about uh, um, being fulfilled, because what you said was incredibly powerful. And to sum it up, it's wherever you go, you have to bring you with you, right?
100%.
So if you're unhappy and you think, well, this success is going to make me happy, then you get there. I promise you, if you haven't done the internal work, you're not going to be happy. And you may look at Jake's circumstances and listen to his story, and you may say, well, that ain't going to be me. right? But let's look at across the country, right? And let's look at history. We have, I can name any industry, right? And we can name somebody that's incredibly successful and has committed suicide. Let's look at a famous one,
Oh, Anthony
Robin Williams.
Bourdain, Robin Williams, Kate
Like,
Spade.
yeah, and it's
Oh
Kate
yeah.
Spade, exactly. And
Yep.
so Robin Williams, I mean, arguably one of the greatest comedians of all time,
Most
made
beloved
people
actors.
happy,
Yep.
made millions happy around the world, and was incredibly unhappy, made millions of dollars, billions, like he was rich, wealthy, everything, had everything,
Yep.
committed suicide.
Yep. Kate Spade's company was making $50 million a month when
Yeah,
she committed suicide. You know, Tony Robbins, speaking of, he once said that success without fulfillment is the ultimate failure.
yeah,
This whole conversation started around the concept of transformation. The biggest lie that we have been sold, especially in our society, which is very bent on and driven by accomplishment, achievement, and success. Not that there's anything inherently wrong with any of those things. We've been sold this lie that we can somehow achieve our way to our full potential.
mhm,
And that could not be further from the truth. The reality is that transformation is fundamentally way more about undoing, unlearning, and unbecoming than it is about learning, doing, or becoming.
yeah. And what people
But
don't realize is that subconsciously, like even me, I didn't realize this when I went through my transformation. We have subconscious limiting beliefs that we are attaching a limiting belief to an action that is driving. It's literally in the driver's seat of everything that we do. For instance, let's say that you had a partner, a spouse or a partner that cheated on you, right? And you now are like everyone that have, and then you leave that person, you go with another person, and then they cheat on you, and now your belief is that like everyone's a cheater, right? So, and this is
they're
a
right. Yep.
very basic concept,
Self-protective strategy. Yeah,
but it's to protect yourself, right? And so then
correct.
what happens is that, especially for guys, a
Mhm.
guy 9 times out of 10 when this happens, they'll then start becoming a cheater themselves, or they will be careless. They'll just be like, I'll sleep with whoever. I'm not going to get let tied down. I'm just going to have fun and do me, right? And then they're just going through having one night stands or meaningless relationships that don't last very long because they're not willing to commit, because every single time they commit, in their mind, commitment means pain. They've attached pain to commitment because every single time they commit, something bad happens. They end up getting cheated on. And it's like, and we're, like I said earlier, we're going to move away from pain.
Yep.
And
Yep.
there's a pain that's associated with that. So it's like, well, I
Yeah.
don't feel pain if I just, have a one night stand. And that's what's happening with a lot of people, is something as simple as that.
Right. Because it creates a fundamental fear of intimacy.
Yeah.
At that point, you put up a wall or a barrier between you and this thing that is supposed to be, and arguably is, inherently safe,
Mhm,
but no longer feels safe because of your association to it, and
mhm,
how you relate to it, which was exactly what happened with me after I was abused. Love, connection, intimacy fundamentally felt unsafe. So what did I do? I put distance between me and intimacy, which had me keep all of these people in my life at arm's length, friends, family, romantic partners, which created this fundamental disconnection and had me unconsciously pushing love away, pushing connection away, and turning to achievement and success, in order to cope with it.
yeah,
Right. And so, this is a tale as old as time. And for people, you mentioned earlier, who are like, oh, I don't resonate with, Jake's circumstances, or, you know, that's not me, or I don't struggle with that. I would invite you, if you're listening to this, I would invite you into the probability, the high probability that that is your ego talking and not you, because the primary goal of the ego is to maintain the status quo. And the best way for it to do that is to hide the truth from you.
Yes.
Our beliefs by virtue are unconscious. In order to understand what we believe about any one particular thing, whether it be love, success, money, vulnerability, the opposite sex, all you need to do is look at your results. They will paint a perfect picture of what you believe about yourself and those things. So that's in our work with our clients, because as you can probably imagine, it starts like any normal coaching relationship. Someone comes to us with a problem or a challenge
Mhm.
or a desire to achieve more, and they kind of expect inherently that we're going to say, okay, this is what you need to do in order to, in order to achieve or reach that goal or that milestone, whatever it may be. But the conversation has to start with what is currently getting in the way of you reaching that goal or achieving that objective. It has to. It has to. If it doesn't, we're just treating the symptoms. That's all
You're
we're
right.
doing.
Right.
And this is this is why the vast majority of people, after having hired a coach, revert back to their former level of behavior. Not because they're incapable of achieving those goals long term, but oftentimes because the coaching that they were receiving was incomplete and insufficient, because it didn't address the root cause of the issue. It didn't address the disease.
Mhm.
Let's just take diet and nutrition, for example. If you ever hire a dietitian or a nutritionist, their first step is likely going to be simply creating a meal plan for you to support you in reaching your goals. But what
Mhm.
is one of the most problematic things when it comes to people achieving their diet or their nutrition goals or their physique goals? It's yo-yo dieting. Right? So what do? They adhere to this new level of behavior, a new diet plan, fitness routine, whatever it may be, and then they rubber band back. They revert back to their former level of behavior, because
Yeah.
their beliefs are the same. We never rise to the level of our goals. We always fall to the level of our beliefs.
Mm.
So they may get results initially, right? That's never rarely the question. Any coach can, support you in reaching your goals with enough willpower, with enough, determination, and all of those things. But that's not the question. The question is, where are you at long term, 6, 12 months down the road, 3, 5 years down the road? Has the behavior, stuck? Has it cemented itself in your character? If your
Mhm.
beliefs are the same, you are going to just revert back to your former level of behavior. You're going to self sabotage for the sake of
Yes.
achieving confirmation bias to your previously existing belief system and your identity, how you perceive yourself. And
And it's
so,
not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. You will
correct,
self-sabotage. If it will
right,
happen subconsciously, it's going to happen. There's nothing you can do about it if you
correct.
haven't done the work. And to
Yep.
and to drive the point home further about what you said, about ego, about them kind of saying like, "Hey, this is ego." If you're saying like, "Oh, yeah, this isn't me.
I'm good.
I'm good. Nah, man,
Yep.
I'm good." I will tell you, every single person that says that, it's 1,000% ego, and because anybody that has gone through transformation will resonate and relate. Like, you know what? You're absolutely right. And I struggle with this because when you go through transformation, you understand that it's a continuous process. It does not stop. I don't go to the
Yep.
gym one time or for 6 months
100%.
and do that,
I'm good.
and then all of a sudden I'm done.
I'm
No,
good. Yeah, totally.
I'm going for life. I go
Yeah.
through personal development and transformational
All the
experiences
time.
for life.
Yeah. If you don't use it, you lose it.
Yes.
Alex Hermosi did this interview recently where they asked him how often he works out. And they were really surprised by his answer, because he said, I only work out twice a week. And they're like, what? And he's like, well, see, this is what most people don't understand. He's like, I went to the gym 6 days a week for 12 plus years. Right. So now he's at a point in his journey where he simply needs to maintain,
Yeah.
right, in order to continue to look the way that he does, and maintain his level of strength. The same thing is true for our interpersonal development,
Yeah.
for our self growth. If we don't use it, we lose it. In fact, there's a lot of science that backs this up, that our normal natural disposition is a victim mindset. It's called
Mhm.
external locus of control, which is to blame other people or other things outside of ourselves for our current level of results. What is not hardwired into that's hardwired into us. What is not hardwired into us is internal locus of control, which is I am the source of every result in my life, good or bad, period.
Yeah.
Right? Are there things that happen to me that are outside of my control? Yes, of course. But as Jack Canfield once said, life is, 10% of what happens to you and 90% of how you respond to it. And so if you don't do this work, if you don't adopt it as a lifestyle, it has to become a lifestyle, just like fitness. You talked about going to the gym. If you go to the gym for 6 to 12 months and then you all of a sudden say, I'm good, right? In another 6 to 12 months, you're going to be right back where you started. And so the same is true for the work that we do with our clients is we encourage them that this has to become a lifestyle for you, not just for you to achieve your long-term goals, but for it to stick. Right?
Yeah.
It's not hard to the top of the mountain. It's hard to stay there.
Yeah. How did when you spoke with your therapist, you discovered
Yep.
the limiting beliefs that you had,
Mm,
you're like, "Ooh, those are kinda ugly. I'm gonna just
yeah.
hide those away. I'm gonna ignore those." You try to move
100%.
forward. It was roadblocks, roadblocks, roadblocks. It was all these things
Yep.
that are happening in life. Universally, that was dude, that was divine intervention coming
Oh,
down and
totally.
telling you, "Hey, bro. Hey, you haven't worked on this shit
Yeah.
yet."
a hundred
Um
percent.
how did you when you finally said, "Yes, I'm gonna okay, all right, okay, I see the signs, I see the signs, I'm doing it," right?
Yep.
What did you do to overcome it initially to, like, get past that hump and start developing new beliefs?
I went to a personal development workshop. Similarly to
There you go.
yeah, there you go. Similarly to a Tony Robbins event, it's very experiential. They have centers all around the U.S. Um, but it was like a 4 or 5 month. It was one workshop split into three phases called Discovery, which is all about creating awareness around your internal blocks, barriers, limiting beliefs, all of those things. The second phase is all about breaking through those things. And then the third phase is all about leadership, right? Integrating all of that new awareness and those new behaviors into every area of your life, right? So
Right,
that's where you start to like set goals and create a vision for the future, all of these various different things. So I went to one of those and it was incredible, as you can imagine. I very much felt like I had um, transformed, if you will, for lack of a better phrase. But I will say that until we confront something, some incident, some experience, some relationship that we know how to deal with, all of the work that we've done on ourselves previously was just bogus self-help on our own terms.
yeah,
And I say that about myself, right? I say that about myself. All the workshops, all the coaches, all the seminars that I've attended and invested in over the years, all of that, uh, again, very beneficial, very helpful, very transformative. All of it was just self-help on my own terms until I experienced something that I did not know how to cope and deal with. And that's where the journey truly begins, is when we no longer know what to do and we no longer know where to go. And that's exactly what I talk about in my book. I posted my story of sexual abuse on social media, so here I am several years into my personal development journey, having attended many various workshops, seminars, hired several different coaches, and my nervous system collapsed. And I suffered from what is clinically referred to as an acute nervous system breakdown, because the level of connection that was created by virtue of me sharing on my social platforms on Facebook and Instagram was too much for my nervous system to handle. Because if you remember previously, one of the beliefs that I made up about love, connection, and intimacy after my sexual abuse was that it was unsafe.
Yeah.
And so the level of connection was just so high, and it thrust me so far out of what is referred to as my window of tolerance that, it basically caused my nervous system to just shut down because the input was simply too much for me to handle. And that's
That's
where my
very
journey
complex.
really
Like
began.
you're going through you're going through the work. You're like, hey, I'm gonna start helping people, acknowledging that I
Yep.
had this happen.
Yes.
That limiting belief has still got seeds within you, right? You
Right.
don't know it
Yeah.
subconsciously. You're
Yep.
sharing it, that you get that connection. Now your brain's firing off like you're in danger, you're in danger, you're in danger. And
Right.
dude, that's
Right.
incredible.
Right. Well, as a fitness guy, this we don't we experience the world through the lens of our nervous system,
Yes.
through how different things, different people make us feel. Right. For example, you're about to take a risk. Naturally, innately, your nervous system is likely to come online depending on the severity of the risk,
Mhm.
and it's going to tell you, "Hey, don't do that." Right? That's too much, too soon, too fast. You should probably not do that.
Mhm.
But of course, if we don't do it, we just create more of the same. We stay locked inside of our comfort zone, right? And we don't actually create any real long lasting sustainable change for ourselves, because
Yeah.
true change requires that we risk, that we step into the unknown. And so we have these beliefs, but those beliefs are constantly communicating to our body, to our nervous system, to determine how we ought to feel about certain things or people or situations or conversations or interactions that, of course, then dictate our felt experience
Mhm.
and therefore our decisions and our actions. Right? Tony Robbins talks a lot about this, right? What is it, like thoughts, feelings, beliefs, or excuse me, thoughts,
Yes.
feelings, actions, right?
Yes.
Thoughts, feelings, actions. And so until, yes, like rewiring our beliefs is absolutely an incredible place to start, a necessary place to start. And until we increase our felt level of safety inside of our body, we're going to sabotage, because it's going to innately feel like a threat to our nervous system. And this is why in our work with our clients, and they're talking about the goals they want to accomplish or what they're setting out to achieve, we have to increase their level of felt somatic safety in order for it to result in long lasting sustainable change, in
Yeah.
order for it to stick, if you will. And so that's why I think there's this huge misconception, especially in the online coaching space, around like, what does it take to be truly successful, right? And it's all action oriented, external oriented, around goals and high performance habits and biohacking and all of the all of these different things, which play a part and serve a purpose, to be sure. But we can't start there. We have to start at the foundation, right. If you are, for your business, let's take for example your business. If you are the core of your business, what's the core of you? The core of you is your inner work.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I love that. Do you believe do you believe that people you can change people even if they don't want to change?
No, I don't believe that you can change people. I think you can only persuade people to change themselves. That I've been in sales in one form or another, whether it's been for a corporate company or for myself,
Yeah.
for well over a decade. And I'm sure you've heard this before. There's this saying that if I say it to you, you're going to doubt it. But if you say it to me, you're going to treat it as fact.
Mhm.
So persuasion comes by way of asking you powerful, evoking questions that guides you to the truth and ultimately shifts your perspective, the way in which you see yourself, other people in the world. So that's
But
the only
if you
thing that
were
we can
guiding
do.
that conversation,
Yeah.
then you were the one that's directing the change, technically, because they wouldn't have had
Technically.
that they would have had that thought process without you guiding it.
True, but now you're talking about like within the context of like a coaching relationship, for example, where I've been essentially given permission to coach someone. So they've already kind of gone through that, that phase of saying, I need to change. I need to become someone different if I want to accomplish different.
Yeah.
Um, but when it comes to like, for example, supporting them into choosing into that initial experience, whether it's coaching with me, whether it's signing up for Tony Robbins, for example,
Mhm.
all I can do is persuade them. All I can do is lovingly challenge their perspective in a way that creates a paradigm shift. Perfect example, keto diet. Right? Everyone's familiar with keto diet for the most part.
For the most part.
Yep. So why keto diet was so effective, why it became this fad across the health industry, the diet industry, was not because it was so effective at creating results for people, although that backed up what they were saying. The reason that it was so impactful, so effective, was because it attacked something that we assumed was true, which is that fat is what? Fat is bad.
Yeah.
So it attacked something that we assumed was true, especially if you're a millennial, right? We grew up with margarine and all of these various different things because fat was bad. So that was like a part of our belief system. It was a part of like our worldview. Here, keto diet comes along and it all of a sudden attacks that truth, which creates a paradigm shift. Now, a paradigm shift doesn't change your entire world, it changes a small part of how you see the world, but that changes everything.
Mhm.
So I use that as an example, um, to really get the message across that and then of course keto diet backed it up with evidence, right? It showed all these before and after pictures of people losing, a lot of weight, getting into really incredible shape in a relatively short period of time, because that's kind of what happens when you first, get your body into a prolonged state of ketosis. And people bought in. And so I just use that as an example to illustrate what I mean by that when I say, when it comes to choosing into transformation or personal development, all I can do is persuade someone in that way to shifting their perspective that creates this paradigm shift within them that then changes everything. And there's this reorientation, right? All of a sudden that
Mhm.
someone experiences inside of them internally. I actually recently did this with a client. He's the CEO of a roofing company here in Atlanta, Georgia, which is where I live now. Really successful, multiple seven-figure business. He kept experiencing resistance when it came to training his sales employees because all they do is door-to-door sales, which is, it's a tough business. There's a lot of rejection, a lot of no's, and people internalize that and they can start to take it personally. But regardless, it can be incredibly discouraging.
Yes.
And
Absolutely.
so for him and for his employees, this shift in perception and perspective that I provided for them was that, you're currently seeing approaching a door and continuing to do door knocking, right? You think you're moving closer and closer to rejection because rejection is very much is the majority of the experience when it comes to door knocking or, cold calling or anything like that. So I was like, I would encourage you to start to see it as you continually moving closer to success, because success and failure go together. They're just opposite sides of the same coin. The
Mhm.
closer I move towards failure, the more I risk, the more I door knock, the more I cold call, for example, the closer I am to my next yes. And
It's the yin
so,
and yang of everything.
correct.
You
Yep. The law of
you can't have
polarity.
highs without lows. You can't
Yep.
have light without darkness. Like one exists because of the other.
Yep. You can't experience, acceptance without rejection. Those two things go together. And so the moment that we were able to instill that in them, they experienced this complete reorientation within them that all of a sudden allowed them to much more seamlessly move through the resistance that they were experiencing and get on board with what they were being asked to do, which allowed them to reach their goals that much faster, which then enabled the company to grow exponentially.
Yeah.
And so this is at the heart of what has to happen within all of us if we hope to move through the resistance that is inherent for all of us when it comes to reaching higher levels of financial success and abundance, love and intimacy, opportunity, because we all have a threshold in terms of what we feel safe to receive. Anything beyond that feels like a threat. And what do? Inevitably, we sabotage.
Yep.
And so this is just kind of a picture of what has to happen inside of all of us if we hope to consistently and continually achieve more and hold more and receive more over time.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I love that. I love that. Um, do me a favor, hold up your book again. Let everyone know your book.
Let love in. The pain stops when the truth starts.
Where's the best place to buy that at?
Amazon.com.
Okay.
As you can imagine, it's my full name. So it's Jacob, Jacob, Kauffman, Kauffman. Otherwise, you can find it via my website, which is awakewithjake.com.
Nice, nice. And what's the best place for if someone listens to this and they find that they are compelled to talk
Yeah.
to you, reach out and learn more? What's the best way for them to connect with you?
Best place is my website or on Instagram. Probably most active on Instagram, which is I am Jake Kauffman, Kauffman. Would love to hear from you. Would love to hear how this lands, how this resonates. There's links to my books and various other ways that you can connect with me. But yeah, that's the best place.
That's awesome. Well, Jake, I appreciate you being so vulnerable and sharing your story. And I think with that, what you're doing with men and helping them to transform their lives from the process that you went through, I think that's incredible, man. It's a beautiful, beautiful way to live your life. And you have just an incredibly beautiful story. So thank you for coming
Thanks,
on
Greg.
and sharing that with us. The last
Appreciate
thing
it,
that I
brother.
ask all my guests
Yeah.
is if you had the opportunity to speak with, learn
Yep.
from, break bread with any three individuals in history,
In
alive or
history.
deceased, who would they be and why?
Oh man, Richard Rohr would be the first.
Okay.
Father Richard Rohr. He's a Franciscan friar. He's written a ton of books which have around masculinity, healthy masculinity. Um, he's been doing men's work for 50 plus years before most of us were born, and he's been just implemental in my own spiritual development. Because I am a true believer that all of this personal development work, it has to put us on the path towards a higher purpose or a higher power.
Yeah.
If it doesn't, we need to get rid of it. But definitely Father Richard Rohr. Um, my grandfather on my dad's side, one of my favorite human beings in the world. Helped my family, helped my parents take care of him the last several years of his life when I still lived in Michigan, which is where I was born and raised.
Mhm.
Definitely would love to have dinner with him one more time. Oh man. Hmm. And then I would probably I'm having lunch with him this. I'm having dinner with him this Thursday. Dr. Jerome Lube, probably one of the most brilliant human beings that you've never heard of. Um, that has arguably saved my life.
Nice. Nice. Thank you for sharing those. Those are all very unique ones. Um, this has been the Be the Difference podcast. If you got any value, if you resonated with Jake's story, then do me a favor, do us a favor. Share this content with somebody else that can also get value from it. They can learn from it and maybe find a way to step on the path to start getting rid of their limiting beliefs to transform their lives. And it takes you just a couple of seconds to rate, review, subscribe, or share, but it means the world to both Jake and I. And you might actually touch another soul. This has been the Be the Difference podcast. I'm your host, Greg Birch. Until next time, we'll see you.